All right, welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to get into a variety of topics, but this first one, I know everybody wants to know what is going to happen to this $7,500 federal tax credit, and specifically what will happen to it with the Tesla Model Y. There's really no update here officially, but we're going to talk about what could potentially happen on what my thoughts are, which if you've been following the stream, if you've been watching a lot of the videos, it's basically the same on where it could potentially lose it, it could potentially keep it, but I'm a little bit more pessimistic than others, and I really feel like the Tesla Model Y will lose at least half of it. And of course, I'll talk about it and get into the reasons why, but I want to hear from you all. I want to know what you are thinking. Do you think the Tesla Model Y will keep it, the $7,500 federal tax credit, or will it go down to $3,750, or will it go down to zero? So we'll talk about it. We'll explain it all, and I would love to hear your thoughts as well. But before we get into any of that, let's roll that intro real quick. All right, so thanks for watching another stream. Thanks for watching another video. My name is Dennis, and I love talking about Tesla hacking, as I like to call it, but basically just getting the best deal on Tesla with the best financing rate. So definitely hit that subscribe if you're interested. And shout out to my latest Patreon members, Shan, William, and Colin. Thank you for joining the Patreon. Hopefully you got some benefits. If you want to check it out, the YouTube join link down below or the Patreon link, you can get access to my buying guide, which has links to all the best credit unions and banks, amongst other stuff, to get the best deal on a Tesla. And so let us jump into this. If you don't know what's going on right now, there is a $7,500 federal tax credit. It is from the IRS and of course the Treasury, and that's really only if you as an individual qualify. So most people do qualify for the full $7,500 federal tax credit, and then kind of the rule of thumb here is that you have to have a tax liability, and if you're someone that makes a W-2 income above $70,000 to $80,000 as a single person with no dependents, married, or anything like that, you're going to pay about $7,000 to $8,000 in tax liability throughout the year on all your paychecks, and you're going to get that right away back. If you don't believe me, just talk to a CPA so that you can get the the most clarified information at the end of the day. But here's where it jumps into. So here's an article from Edmunds, really good article because it talks about the $7,500 federal tax credit, and it's breaking out into two exact parts. We've got the critical battery minerals at $3,750 and the battery components where it's manufactured at another $3,750. And so right now, on the IRS tax website, there's no updates to this. And what we know so far is that the Treasury is supposed to announce some sort of clarification on this sometime this week. It could be tomorrow. They could wait essentially all the way until the 31st. And in terms of predictions, worst case scenario, it could end right away on April 1st, and Model 3 and Model Y will not qualify for the full $7,500 federal tax credit. That's the worst case scenario. I would say best case scenario, what we know so far is that the Model 3 standard range, the cheapest vehicle, is slated to not receive the $7,500 federal tax credit. We still don't know really what's going to go on with the Model 3 long range or Model 3 performance. In terms of Model Y, there's three trims that we can really dive into, right? There is the Model Y all-wheel drive version, there's the Model Y long range, and of course the Model Y performance. What's interesting here is there's a good amount of inventory on waitingfortesla.com, and you could readily be able to find one if you really want to. But jumping down to this article, which is pretty interesting from Electric, it dives into about how the Model 3 is going to lose the federal tax credit, but there's a paragraph here that a lot of people are referencing. It says, quote, "As for the Tesla, other Model Y and Model 3 vehicles, they are expected to retain access to the full tax credit as they use battery cells built by Tesla or Panasonic in Nevada, California, or Texas." So we could essentially get into an environment where Model 3 standard range does not qualify for anything, and Model 3 and Model Y long range performance, or even all-wheel drive Model Y, could qualify for the full $7,500, or it could qualify for just $3,750. And so all we know right now is you must take delivery by March 31st to ensure that you get the full $7,500 federal tax credit. You can see it right here. It must be a delivery by March 31st. to get that full tax credit. But it's really unknown, right? It could essentially, I personally think that the Model Y could go down to a $3,750 tax credit. And the reason why I think that is because if you go to Tesla's website, maybe I'm just grasping at whatever the kind of interesting stuff on the website here, but if you go to tesla.com, you can see that the Model 3 has this banner at the top that says tax credit changes soon. Eligible buyers take delivery now to guarantee a $7,500 credit. But if you switch to Model Y, it just says new Model Ys qualify for a $7,500 tax credit. It doesn't really have any sort of messaging that you must take delivery now. And so I would think that because they know that the Model 3 is potentially losing all of it, and maybe the Model Y is only maybe losing half of it, that they might be thinking that they would have the Model Y at $3,750 tax credit. And that's why they didn't necessarily change the wording on there, because it still has some sort of tax credit, or it could be a full $7,500. I mean, at the end of the day, we want the most tax credit as much as possible, which is going to be more deliveries, more sales for Tesla for the Model Y. But the other thing, the reason why this supports why I feel like it only will have a $3,750 tax rate is because we probably can suspect and assume that Tesla has known early on that they're only going to get the $3,750 tax rate for the Model Y. And so they probably heard it around this time, right? So we know in January 12th, they did a massive price cut down $13,000 or $12,000 for the Model Y long range across all trims. And they went down almost $11,000 for the Model Y all-wheel drive. And so they didn't really do any sort of price increases until about February 3rd. That's when they did, or actually 1 week after, on January 23rd, they did a long-range $500 increase, and then another long-range 1.5 or 1,500 increase on February 3rd. So they've increased the Model Y long range $2,000 higher than what they initially in price dropped it at. So they could have potentially heard that they're only going to get $3,750, and so maybe they've increased the price $2,000 because they know they're going to have to drop the price maybe $2,000 to $3,000, maybe $4,000 in the near future once the Tesla Model Y loses the tax credit, or it loses half of the tax credit. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's my prediction. Of course, I'm also, I'm a worst case scenario type of person. So maybe like worst case scenario, it goes down to $3,750. But of course, wishful thinking, I would love for the Tesla Model Y to have the full $7,500 tax credit. But let me know what your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Of course, we put a poll on the channel just to see what everybody else is thinking there. We just did it 24 minutes ago, and there's already 123 votes on it already. You can see an overwhelming majority, 45%, said Tesla will keep the $7,500 tax credit. My other option here was that Model Y would go down to $3,750, and then 8% said Model Y standard range would get the $7,500, but the long range performance would go down to $3,750, because that is another option. Like, what if Model Y standard range all-wheel drive? That seems like Tesla has plenty of these available, because Giga Austin is starting to ramp up and pump out more Teslas or Model Y standard ranges that could keep the $7,500. And also the other thing to support that is the Model Y standard range, I think, only went up $1,000 in most recently. And so maybe it's not going to lose the $7,500 at all, but I guess maybe they would have increased it a lot more than that if that was the case. But definitely some pretty interesting stuff. Actually, 11% said zero tax credits. So there's probably going to be a 50-50 balance here at the end of the day, but we'll follow on to see. I mean, it's only Monday. We've got a full week of waiting from the IRS and the Treasury to make some sort of announcement. But if you've got a pending estimated delivery date, if you've got estimated or a pending delivery in the next few days, you should be good. But if you want to double check, you can always call the IRS to make sure that nothing has came out regarding like if your vehicle, the Model Y or Model 3, will get the $7,500 tax credit or not. And of course, there is rumors that there potentially could be if like, let's say the Treasury announces that the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y loses the $7,500 federal tax credit, but or it maybe goes down to $3,750. There's been talk of a transitionary period, like 30, 60, maybe 90 days. I mean, I think that would be great, right? Like, what if like they say it's going to lose the 7,500 tax credit, or it goes down to 3,750, and they say, but if you take delivery by June 31st or June whatever, you'll still be good and locked in as because a harsh cutoff date would suck, but they've definitely done that in the past. They did that to Hyundai and Kia when Inflation Reduction Act was first signed. Well, actually all brands like Porsche, any of these other EV vehicles out there, a lot of those vehicles lost the tax credit that literally that same day or the day after it was actually signed, the IRA was actually signed. So definitely some pretty interesting stuff. Let me know what your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking. We're going to jump into our next topic. But before we do that, this video is actually sponsored by my Patreon link. Down in the description is the Patreon link where you can support the channel. And there's a variety of benefits, but some of them include actually scheduling a call with me. You can ask me any questions about buying a Tesla, selling a Tesla, or even financing a Tesla. And after you join the Patreon, you get a link to my buying guide, which has links to all the resources that I use to get the best possible deal with the best financing. So definitely check out if you're interested. Link down below in the description.